Just as much as we take care of our physical health, we can't neglect our mental health. What's up, dolls? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time here, welcome. And if it is not your first time, you already know I'm glad to see your face. As you can tell by the title today and the intro, I am going to be talking about Jesus and therapy. I truly believe that we need both, but I have 3 reasons as to why I really am an advocate for therapy. So I'm gonna dive into that conversation in a little bit. But before I dive into my points, I do want to encourage you to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more commentary and just candid videos about business, faith, and life from a millennial perspective. If that interests you, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and hit the bell so you don't miss any notifications. And make sure you check the description box to join the newsletter, business mentorship calls, the whole 9. The description box has a lot of goodies, so make sure you look down there, okay? I put that stuff there for a reason. So let's go ahead and dive in. Now, in recent years, therapy has honestly become a very hot topic, not just in the church, but just in the world in general. A lot of people are removing the stigma attached to therapy because I know when I was growing up, particularly in communities of, people of color or, like the Caribbean community or just different communities that you might be a part of, the faith community, church community, whatever, it was a very big stigma. And so I would say over the last 10 years, we've really made leaps and bounds as far as being comfortable about talking about therapy and admitting like, hey, yeah, like I want to go to therapy or I have a therapist or whatever. And so with that being said, there are people on both sides of the camp and people that are more neutral. So you have the people, particularly in the church community, that are like, you don't need therapy if your faith is strong enough. God will take care of you. He's a mind regulator, this, that, the third, which is true. Okay. God can regulate your mind. He's done it for me many a time, to be honest. After all the things I've been through, I'm shocked I'm still in my right mind forming coherent sentences. Okay. Because I'll have to save it for the memoir. But nevertheless, God is a mind regulator. God can heal us in ways that even doctors don't understand, But then you have the people on the side of the camp that are like, therapy should be standard, like across the board, everybody needs a therapist, period. Get yourself in some therapy. And then you have the people that are like, hey, like if the shoe fits, if you feel drawn to do it, then by all means go ahead and do it. So for me, I would say I lean more towards the side of like, I think everybody should get some therapy. And the type of therapy that most people refer to is cognitive behavioral therapy. And that is when you are basically bringing to light certain beliefs, certain behaviors you have, thought processes, attitudes, and pinpointing the problematic parts of those things and how you can improve on it. But needless to say, cognitive behavioral therapy is the common type. That's what most people are referring to when they're saying I need to see a therapist. And so I have my reasons as to why I feel like everybody needs a therapist regardless. And honestly, the first one being that everybody has gone through things, whether it was very traumatic or not. And why would we neglect our mental health when we don't neglect our physical health? Just like you make sure that you go to the doctor, for your annual physical, or maybe more often if you have health issues like myself, I go to the doctor at least 4 times a year, if not more, because of health conditions that I have. So I'm on point with those appointments. Like they're calling me, they're like, hey, like your appointment due date is coming up. You want to get scheduled. You need to go see this doctor. You need to go do this, that, the third. And we're on point with that. But when it comes to mental health, we feel like we can neglect it. And we are one whole being, our mind, our body, our attitudes, everything come together to make one thing. So it's like, why would we not pay attention to our mind? When honestly, that's like the foundation of a lot of things. Before we say anything, before we act, it starts all in our mind. So if your mind ain't right, and if you are still battling with like traumas and turmoil and stuff from your childhood or past experiences, or your belief systems and your attitudes are all jacked up because of what you've been through, how much more is that going to affect your everyday life? And the reality of the situation is some of us may never have any sort of significant or noteworthy physical ailments or sicknesses. And I pray that none of us ever do, to be honest, because that's not fun. I've seen that affect my family. But even if you never have anything super dramatic or traumatic happen physically to your health, you will definitely have some things occur in your life that will challenge your mental stability. You know, that's across the board. We're all going to go through things. Some obviously, like I said, more traumatic and dramatic than others. Not everybody has a hard knock life, but everybody goes through things, and your reality is that you're going to go through things, and your hard knock life might not be on someone else's level, but it's still something traumatic to you maybe, or dramatic to you. And so, you know, I would say your mental health is probably even just a tad bit more important than your physical health. I'm not saying don't go to the doctor. I'm not saying you don't have to, you know, eat healthy, exercise, all that. Trust me, your body is your temple, but it all starts in the mind. So if your mind, if the foundation, the beginning point is messed up, how much more messed up is everything else going to be, you know? And so honestly, also, when your mental health is not on point, it really can have physical effects on your body. Like, you can feel more fatigued, you can feel just real like drowsy, you can feel really just like lethargic, you know, like it really does have physical effects, because I've been pretty open on this channel about my struggles with anxiety. And when I'm in those moments where I'm being attacked by anxiety, I'm pretty numb. Like, it's hard for me to do anything. It's hard for me to literally do basic stuff, and I feel it physically. So your mental even affects your physical to a certain point. And so that's why I'm like, I feel everybody should get into therapy. Even if you feel like, hey, my life was pretty normal, I came from a loving family, this, that, the third. I'm telling you, there are things that you went through, or that you observed, or that you were surrounded by, that affect you and how you act today that you might not realize. So I feel like we should definitely be taking advantage of the resources that God gives us, just like how he can, you know, turn it around for our health and our lives. And, you know, he is the Alpha and Omega. Ultimately, our faith is in him, but he provides us with resources on earth to make sure that we can be our best selves. Just like he provides us with doctors and specialists, he provides us with therapists and counselors to help us walk through our mental health journey. Therapy also allows you to work through any mental health obstacles you might have, your traumas, your turmoil, your attitude, your thought processes, your belief systems, and all of that stuff in a non-biased way. So I alluded to this earlier, but I really want to emphasize in the non-biased way, because a lot of us are leaning on family and friends as our counselors. And by all means, you should have a circle of people around you that you can lean on in a time of need. I'm very big on that, because otherwise it's like, why are you so close to me? You know, that's just how I see it. But you know, it's like they can only take but so much, because they have their own things that they're dealing with. They're not trained to like handle this and like compartmentalize it. And if they're an empath like me, they're taking on your problems as their own. So it could really weigh on them, because they truly just care, and like they can put themselves in your shoes and feel how you feel. So sometimes that's why family and friends might kind of like become a little distant when you're going through stuff and you're like really leaning on them emotionally. It's not that they don't want to be there for you. It's just that they're like, hey, like I need a mental break, because this is a lot. Like I have my own stuff going on as well, and I want to be there for you. But you know, at the end of the day, it's not their responsibility. As harsh as it might sound, it's not their responsibility to help you work through your traumas. Now, if they played a part in that, it kind of is to a degree, in the sense that you guys should be able to get to a point where you talk it out, you hash it out, you reconcile, and you're able to heal from whatever trauma or issue y'all had that caused the problem, the mental health problem in the first place. But other than that, it really is our own responsibility to make sure that we are taking stock and taking charge of our mental health, our physical health, our happiness, our joy, all that kind of stuff. We really can't look to anybody else to do that for us. Honestly, it's us and God that has to work on that journey. And so going to therapy allows you to do it in a non-biased way, because not only is your therapist or counselor trained in this, so they're going to be able to, like I said, compartmentalize themselves and work and not get too emotionally invested. I mean, they'll care as a human, but they're not going to get like so emotionally invested. But they're also not your friend. They're also not your family member. So they're not going to be biased in a situation. You know, when you go to your friends and family, they're going to be biased. Like when I go to my mom about something, like y'all know I'm still in these dating streets. Okay. So there's always something to talk about when it comes to that. And let's say I go to my mom and I'm like, yeah, like this situation happened and it kind of has me questioning myself and da da da. Of course she's going to take my side. It's my mom. like, she don't care about these men. She's like, whatever, like, he's wrong, he ain't no good, he shouldn't have never did that, this and the third, da-da-da, like, you know. And that's just what family and friends do. They're gonna side with you, they're gonna be biased, and they're gonna have a skewed perspective. They're not really going to necessarily call you out in the way that they should, and if they do, they're not going to be able to do it in such depth like a therapist or counselor. Versus going to therapy, you'll be able to share the experience, and they'll be able to say like, yeah, like that person shouldn't have did this, that, or the third, but this is also the role that you might have played in this, or how do you feel about, you know, your thought process towards this, or how did you approach it? They're gonna call you to task and make you look at the man or woman in the mirror, because it's very easy for us to point at everybody and everything else and say it's happening to me, instead of saying, you know what, I'm an active participant in my life. What role am I playing in these situations that is playing out like this? Not saying that we want to blame ourselves or anything like that, especially if you're dealing with some really, really severe traumatic situations. I don't want you to get into victim blaming and stuff like that, but we really have to sit and think like, okay, well, what role have I played in allowing this to affect my life, or allowing this to change my perspective of people, or allowing this to change my belief system, or, you know, whatever the case may be. And so that's where the therapist and counselor comes to play, and you're able to work through these things in a very like neutral, objective way, versus through emotionalism from family and friends, because obviously they're gonna side with you. You're their person, you know, you're their sister, their mother, their whatever, auntie, cousin, so they're going to care about you, and they're going to be skewed in your direction. Whereas therapy is going to be neutral, and that's what we all need. We all need someone who's non-biased, who's going to make us look at the person in the mirror, and where we really have to sit with ourselves and say, you know what, I did that. Like, that was my bad. Or, yeah, I can see how I kind of played that role. Or, wow, I can see how I'm really jaded in this area, or whatever. You know, like, we all need that. And honestly, therapy provides a level of accountability in your journey to better mental health that a lot of us just may not get. Because again, like, if you're leaning on family and friends, they're not necessarily going to hold you accountable or call you to task in the same way a therapist or counselor would. But if you know that every week or every month or however your schedule is, that you're going to go see your therapist, you're going to want to actually like take action on the things that they tell you to take action on. So when you go to see them again, you actually have like a report of some progress. You know, it's kind of like when I used to go to that weight loss company. I think they went bankrupt a couple years ago, to be honest, but I want to say it was like LA Weight Loss or something. It was one of those that is no longer in existence, or they got bought over or something like that. But this was years ago, like maybe freshman year of college, that I was like, okay, I'm gonna try this program so I can get the accountability and this, that, the third. And so I used to go to the office once a week in Greenbelt, Maryland, if y'all know what I'm talking about, in Greenbelt Plaza, you know, that area. And the first week I went, I'm like, okay, you know, they're signing me up, this is the program, these are the rules and stuff. And I remember hearing them cheering and like ringing a bell with excitement for one of the clients that had lost like 5 pounds and 2 inches or something like that. It was incremental, but it was still like, oh my gosh, yay, like you did this, that's great. Because that level of accountability keeps you wanting to push forward. And so when I heard that, I was like, wow, like I want to be celebrated. So because I know I have to check in with them every week, I stayed on point with my meals and my exercise during the week, because I don't want to go in and they're like, oh, you gained weight, or, you know, you don't get the fanfare, you don't get the bell ringing for you, ain't nobody cheering. Like, they trying to encourage you, but you can tell they're like, come on now, like it's time for you to step it up. You said you want to lose weight, or if you stay the same, it's kind of like, okay, you know, keep your head up, keep, you know, like they go into encouragement, but it's just like, I want the bell, I want the ritz and the glitz and the woohoo, you lost weight, you know. So it keeps you on point when you know you have that checkpoint every week, or periodically or frequently, or however, like I said, your schedule is. And so therapy provides that, because it's like, not only am I saying I want to improve my mental health, but I actually have this person that's going to hold me accountable. Because I don't know about you, I don't want to go and see them every week or whenever our arrangement is, and I'm just like, yeah, like I didn't do those action items that you told me to do, or yeah, I'm still in the same place, like little to no progress, not looking like you're not taking it seriously, because now I'm wasting their time and mine, and they're gonna be thinking, I'm sure in the back of their mind, like, sis, are you serious or not? Because honestly, I could be working with other clients. Like, don't be playing in my office or on my line, you know, however you tend to do it. And so it gives you that extra push, because you don't want to just talk about it. We want to be about it. You actually want to make the changes that you said you want to make. You actually want to get the accountability that you said you're looking for, so you can become the person that you want to become. The accountability also helps to give room for deep introspection, like I had mentioned earlier, so that we can really take that time to realize, like, when we are our own worst enemy, when it is life just happening to us, when we do need to see things from a different perspective, or just, to have someone challenge us in a healthy way. But honestly, you can't beat accountability. If you really want to step it up in any area of life, make sure you have an accountability partner or some system in place that's going to hold you accountable. For me, the accountability partner may or may not work, but I know if I have to go and check in with someone, like almost like a teacher and student type of thing, I'm going to show up with my best effort, because I don't want to waste their time or mine. And I don't want to feel that, like, dang, like I didn't give it my all type of, feeling that you get when you're sitting in front of them and you're like, oh yeah, I didn't do the action items, or I didn't do the assignment or whatever. Like, I just don't want to do that. So those systems work great for me, because it's going to force me to really, really do what I'm supposed to do and to show up as my best self. Now, I do want to say that one thing that I want to see less of amongst believers or the church community is the stigma around therapy. Like I said earlier in the video, I believe we've made leaps and bounds, but there still is kind of like this unspoken stigma, like, oh, if you're struggling with any sort of mental health issue, which anxiety is in that category, your faith just isn't strong enough. Like, you just got to step your faith up. You just got to believe in God more. You just got to, like, trust him more, and kind of placing it on the person. Like, you're personally not doing enough, because if you were, you wouldn't be battling with this. And, I really want to see us veer away from those kind of attitudes, whether we realize we're doing it or not, of just being apathetic to people that genuinely struggle with any sort of mental health obstacle, whether it's anxiety, depression, whatever the case may be, but just to be sensitive to them so that they don't feel like they're closed off from being open about it. Because if someone's being bold enough to share it with you, the last thing you want to do is come off flippant and, apathetic. Like, that's just, it's kind of a slap in the face. Like, dang, like I trusted you enough to open up. Let me close up. Let me clam up. I'm not going to say anything to anybody anymore. So, I just think that we need to not just be like, oh, you just need to increase your faith, increase your trust. Like, there's always room for more faith. There's always room for more trust. But even in the Bible, we see instances where people struggled with depression, such as Job. He really struggled with depression in the Bible. And we have to just have these honest conversations about it and understand that at the end of the day, God is a healer. Like I mentioned earlier, he is a healer. He's the ultimate physician. He's the ultimate mind regulator. He's the ultimate source of joy and peace. I'm speaking from firsthand experience. I've experienced such joy and peace at the hands of God that I can't even really express it in words, because if you felt it, you know. If you know, you know, But at the same time, I have struggles with anxiety, and I don't think that makes my faith in God any less. If anything, I feel like God uses these instances to remind us of how faithful he is, that even though I have these struggles, they don't keep me down. Even though I have these struggles, he's still there for me. Even though I have these struggles, I can still turn to him when I feel like I can't turn to anybody else. And, there's nowhere else that I can go. So I did just want to mention that before I end the video. And I also want to mention too, that there will be a part 2 to this, because I do want to talk about the accessibility of therapy. Because while therapy has become a hot topic in recent years, everyone's like hollering about get the therapy, go to therapy, get therapy. It's not that accessible. Like, honestly, I started this year looking for a therapist, because in past years I've done like forums and like therapeutic support groups and stuff where you're kind of like all supporting each other, but you're not one-on-one with the therapist in that cognitive behavioral therapy atmosphere, like I mentioned. So I started looking for that this year, because I'm like, I want to step it up a notch. Like, I want to get my own personal therapist that I could build a relationship with, Lord willing, and they just work with me over a period of time, or a long period of time, short period of time, whatever. And I started looking it up, and I'm just like, oh wow, okay, like, even with my insurance and stuff, it's still pretty inaccessible in the grander scheme of things. So look out for part 2 to this video, where I will be breaking down like what I believe are some of the issues of accessibility, and the cost of therapy, and why people may not be in therapy as much as they should, and why the people that probably need it the most aren't in it. I'm going to do a part 2 addressing all of that, because it's not so cut and dry as society would have you think, especially with the topic being a hot topic nowadays. It is still pretty a complex thing to partake in, and it's still, in my eyes, a luxury service, and it shouldn't be that way, because everybody, like I said, in my opinion, should have access to therapy, because we all need somebody to just work through stuff with, even if it's just for a couple of weeks. Like, we all need that help, especially after the last 2 years we've had with everything going on in the world, with the lockdowns and stuff. Trust me, if you didn't need it before then, you probably need it now. So I do want to address that, and that's going to be in part 2. So that's it for this video. I hope that if you are a believer and maybe you were ashamed to say like you're seeking therapy, or you were kind of battling like, is my faith not strong enough for me to be seeking therapy or whatever, I hope that this provides you with some encouragement and some clarity to know that it's okay. Like, you can get the help that you need. And if you never thought about therapy, then I hope that this video encourages you to look into it and to consider it. You know, ultimately the choice is yours, but I think it's very helpful for everybody. So that's all. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below and the bell notification so you don't miss future uploads. And I will see you guys on the next video. Bye.